Bob Carr, Australia's ex-Foreign Minister, our longest serving Premier here in New South Wales of Australia, shares with us what it takes to get over the fear of failure. It's awesome to hear this from a politician, actually, someone who's been as successful as Bob. He opens up and he also lets us know what's the one thing that he wishes he'd spent more time on, which of course he's doing a lot to get better at right now. And I have a lot of fun in terms of coaching Bob in this particular area. Hey, welcome to the Leadership Show. Welcome to the Happiness Platform. I'm Ro Singh.
Bob, welcome to the Happiness Platform. Welcome to the Leadership Show.
Hello. It's a great cause. Happy to talk to you.
Thank you. And thanks for having us in your office. I hope you've read all these books.
I can't say I have. No.
I was very impressed.
There are a lot of them.
I was very impressed. Bob, you've served our nation for a long time. You've served our state for a long time. Today I wanted to talk to you about, what makes a good leader, particularly one who's orientated towards service, who's dedicated his entire life to this particular cause, such as you have. So maybe if we can start off there. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Well, one idea I'd like to give you and hold up to the light is the notion of life as a learning experience. Because I think leaders ought to see their life as being a trajectory of learning. I could go on about it at great length, but just think of one thing. The challenge any leader has of walking into a room of strangers and becoming interested in other people. It's not hard if you think to yourself when you go into that room that from each person here, I'm capable of learning a great fact, a great truth. And if you take that approach, you're interested in people, you're motivated to winkle out of them what their lifetime experience has been and what they've boiled it down to. But to get to that point, you need to say, I want to learn. I want to learn. Life is a learning experience. And I think if you take that, if you're interested in learning, of course, life is interesting. Life is interesting. I think people who are demoralized by life or defeated by life are people who are not passionate about learning new things. At my age, I'm just getting a little bit sad that I'm not going to have time to learn everything I want.
So, Bob, it's a really prudent point. It's a point that we encourage a fair bit, and hence, the work that we do, which is try and get such wisdom from people like yourself and share it with everybody, right? So when you were serving the nation and also when you were serving the state, there were some major changes that you put forward. What motivated you to keep going? Because you were in a dirty business where people are always, having a go at you guys for doing something, right? Which may not fit in with what they think is the most important thing. How do you stay on top and focused in terms of, hey, you know what the vision is for the state or the country, and then you go about in making sure whatever plans you put in place gets executed?
Fear of failure. That's a very creative thing. And you render that a positive emotion. I remember once when I was opposition leader, I was way behind in all the polls. The conventional wisdom was that Carr will never be Premier. He might be, if they were generous, they'd say he was the best Premier we never had.
Right.
And I thought, I got all the polls against me, and the experts united in saying that I can't win. I don't want to fail, because that'll be to disappoint the people around me, and like everyone else, I want a bit of honour from my time as a public figure. Therefore, knowing I'm behind, knowing that I'm being ridden off, I'm just going to make every moment of the day count. I will want it to be said, should I be defeated in the forthcoming election, I will want it to be said, he couldn't have done more. He led the party as well as anyone could have. He made every post a winner. In the end, he didn't get over the line, but what a race he ran.
Wow, that's beautiful. And what, Bob, I'm really curious in terms of what formed that type of a character in you. You know, I know you mentioned about learning, always, you know, letting life be a learning experience and continuous learning, so that you're continuously interested in what's going on and you're in the present, right? What shaped Bob to be that particular way, to have that insight rather than buckle to fear, buckle to anxieties and restlessness, etc.?
Yeah. I think just the wisdom to accept, look, I'm in a hell of a position. I've been dealt a bad set of cards, but I'm going to make the best of it so that people will say he couldn't have done more. He fought like a warrior. That's all the motivation you need. On behalf of your cause, give them as good as you can.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
But there's a great lesson in politics, and I want to share it with you. I think, and we've got to deal with the fact of failure. Every election has a winner and a loser. And sometimes the cycle in politics, but in life, in business and other affairs, just won't suit you. It's not your time. The goddess Fortuna hasn't smiled on you because she's been distracted by someone else. It's their turn, not yours. I think if you don't achieve your goal, make a virtue out of not being bitter. I didn't win the prize, but not for a moment am I bitter about it. And if you do win, aspire to be kind about the victory. I did win. Instead of being arrogant or smug, complacent or lazy about that win, I'm going to distinguish myself with kindness. No bitterness in defeat, and in victory, kindness. Don't forget Dostoevsky here, a big lesson from Dostoevsky, in a novel of his, The Brothers Karamazov, that deals with big questions of religion. He has someone tell a story about a woman, and he was very religious. He was a fierce Christian, and he sometimes forces his faith on his readers. He told a story about an old woman who distinguished herself with one kind deed. She gave an onion to a beggar. One. But Dostoevsky has this story told, a story within his novel, of how that good deed, according to a monk or a priest, that single good deed, meagre as it was enough for her to achieve everlasting life. Now, some of your wise Swami friends, wise men of India, would no doubt make the point with a similar tale. But I think at a certain stage in life, it'd be nice if we can list the kind things we did. I'm sure if anyone goes through my life, they'd find a lot on the other side of the ledger, but I'd like to think there are some magnanimous things I did that are to my credit.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty, Bob. You're absolutely right. When I spend my time with the Swamis and the wisdom that they put forward and they try and live by, it's a really interesting one, and I think it'll serve politics really well, which is one of the notion of when we do give, be it that onion, be it to the right person at the right time, then it makes sense. If we give when someone doesn't need it or with the wrong motivation, then it's really a useless deed, right? So I'd be interested to actually read a bit more about that. It'll be cool. So, Bob, Matraville, that's where it all started for you. The Ducks. Did you know back then that this is what you wanted to do? I know it's
at 15. At 15, I became resolved to be a career politician, for the best of motivations, but also to make a name for myself. But I mean, I could have become fanatical about a career in journalism, or if I'd been with different gifts, a career on the sporting field. Some youngsters pick up a motivation at a young age, others sift and evaluate and filter options. But it was funny, at 15 I simply resolved that I'd done a bit of reading, I heard my father talk about politics, that I wanted to be an elected politician.
And how did you, there would have been challenges at times, right? There have been times where you've gone, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't know, did any of those challenges ever come up?
Well, one bit of wisdom is I think you've got to be loyal to the nightmare of your choice. So if you've said at an early age, this is it, and it seems to be an authentic and sincere choice, give it a good run, at least till you get it out of your system. And then, if you're frustrated, if it's a setback and you won't get there, accept that, and again, without bitterness, and pick up something else and give that your best. But when I had setbacks, it was only an invitation to greater effort, because I did think the true expression of whatever talent or good instincts or ambition I had was to be an elected politician.
It's wonderful. You know, there's also another, you keep reminding me of all these lessons that have come forward from the wisdom of the Vedas, which is very, very clear in terms of you best do your own duty and put 100% into it. Doesn't matter if you fail, then to do another person's work and be so successful at it. So I guess this is where it comes back to that insight that I'd like to serve as a politician, be an elected politician, and sticking to it. Doesn't matter whether, what the poll said, etc. That's probably what drives that ability to keep going with the process of being there and doing your best, right? I mean, that's become very, very clear to me a little bit later in life as, you get a bit older. I wish there was the kind of wisdom I had a lot, a long time ago.
Yeah, but we can all wish that. We endlessly, I think, replay our lives and think, if only then I knew what I know now. But one of the beautiful things about life is making mistakes. You make a mistake. And you then, well, being human, you make the same mistake again. But then having made it twice or maybe 3 times, the hard wiring. And you learn from the mistake.
Yes.
But that's being human.
Yes.
Being able to slap yourself on the forehead and say, how could I be so stupid? How could I be so insensitive as to do that? Why on earth did I allow anger or weariness to do something as stupid as that? That's the moment when up here you're being hardwired against doing it again. So it'd be beautiful to rerun our lives with all those lessons. But we'd only make different mistakes, wouldn't we? Being human,
Yes,
we'd
yes,
only make
yes.
different mistakes.
Yes. Well, you're one who public about your focus on keeping healthy, keeping fit, physically, and from just speaking with you, I can see that you do a fair bit as far as making sure mentally you're astute and fine and operating well. How much effort goes into that? Is there dedicated time which you put aside rather than thinking, hey, I'm going to be okay, or look after your health when something goes wrong? What does it look like as far as you're concerned, and how much effort and how dedicated you are towards this?
Well, let's talk about something I'm not successful at. I mean, I think that's more useful, and that's meditation.
Okay.
I must find time to learn to meditate properly, and I'm in a phase now where I've got someone teaching me meditation technique, and I've probably got a bit more space in my life to do it. But one of many regrets I've got, one of many things I'd do differently, is my approach to meditation. I think if there's an investment I could have made that would have made me more effective and a better person, it would have been meditation. But I do find it the hardest discipline. It's not a hard discipline to get out of bed and as Premier devour the news and get on the telephone. It's not hard to get out of bed and go off and do the day's exercise. I like that. It's not hard to settle down with a book that I know will improve my mind. What is hard is colossally, unimaginably hard is to sit down and do nothing.
It is. It's a space that has taken me a long time to get good at. Okay, I was very, very bad at it for a long time because I was somebody who could always enjoyed solving 5 or 6 problems and having 5 or 6 conversations at the same time.
Me too.
And it becomes addictive, and when you get out of bed, you just want to get on and do something. And unless you're doing something, you don't feel you're being productive. The idea of meditation, as you're probably already finding out, is more so to be able to accept those thoughts that are coming in rather than to quieten the mind.
Yes. Yeah.
And then to be able to say, okay, I see you there. Let me park that for a moment, right? I'm going to come back to you, and if it's really important,
Yes.
you're going to come to me again.
Yeah.
And then bringing the focus point back.
If you like what you hear and see, hit like, subscribe, share. It's for free, right? Give the love to people that need it, and I'll thank you.
It is a challenge. It is
Well,
hard.
We will talk about that.
It's hard as learning a language,
It's
which cheated me as well.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I know that there's a lot of people around us who are trying to learn, and it is difficult. The reason I ask is because it's a process, right? The process of getting to that quiet space and then dropping the right mantras,
Yeah.
okay, is the critical component.
Dropping the mantras.
Yeah, into your brain, right?
I
So
see.
just like Om.
Mm.
And even the way you say Om, there's 3 AUM, right? So A is for our conscious state.
Yes.
The U is for our subconscious, okay? The M is for our unconscious, and the word Om takes us to our 4th state of consciousness, which is the connection with your soul, right? So when you do it, I'll demonstrate it for you, okay? Because I love it when someone talks about this, especially someone we admire. What that does for me, the vibrations from your stomach, your chest, your throat, your mind, it automatically puts the brain in a different, the mind into a very serene place. Okay, and then from that, we go into a state of quietness. Okay, and the scientific verification that's coming out now about rejuvenating our cells, etc., is amazing.
I'm aware of that. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. It's the technique that is the challenge. But we stick at it.
We stick with it. It's the mind is extremely restless, right? Whether you like it or not. It's designed. There's a whole Bhagavad Gita saying that the mind's designed to be our worst enemy or our best friend. Automatically will take us towards our worst enemy. Okay? And the only way to make it our best friend is to regulate it. And once you regulate it, then you can sit above it and see what's going on in this field, which is life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're at it. I'd love to see how that goes for you. I've been very fortunate that some really enlightened folks have taken me down that process, and it was actually a concentrated effort of 15 days that it finally hit me, and I was able to get to that state within a few breaths.
Yes.
So it'll come.
Yeah.
It'll come when the time is
Yes.
right. It'll come. Bob, if we can ask you about your favourite and most memorable moments in serving the state, and then perhaps we could talk about some of the stuff that you did overseas, etc., and how, what did you enjoy about that? If we can talk about that.
Well, the things I'm most proud of are the very unglamorous things as Premier. Your role as Premier is to tend to the state's laws, We faced a crisis in the cost of insurance. It involved something called tort law reform. It was very hard. There's a lot of opposition, but it was the right path, and I won the battle to get 4 big pieces of legislation through. Second, I'm very proud of the conservation achievements. Under the pressure of events, we recast environment policy, and it made it possible to create 350 new national parks to save great old forest systems. It's a great bit of policy work.
So, what about the international stuff? You didn't do that for as long as you did the state. What took you down that path? What made you say, "Hey, listen, I can, serve my country here"? Or what was the motivation?
Well, it's about how Australia relates to other nations. It's about casting Australia's international personality, and it was not to do that job. In the 18 months I had it, I emphasised relations with Southeast Asia. Tended to the big work on China policy, but didn't. Took my time about it quite deliberately. I made that a deliberate process. Tended to the relationship with the US, and tried to get some balance in our policy on Israel-Palestine. I could waste my time thinking about what I might have done if I'd had 5 years in the job, but circumstances gave me 18 months.
Yeah. But I want to ask you something that I think about quite a bit, right? Which is around service and the people. If you had the opportunity, and I'm sure these guys come to you and often ask this question, if they don't, well, maybe they should. The people that are in power today, and asked you what makes a good public leader, what makes a good politician, what would you advise them?
Well, I think there are many ingredients. I remember what I said earlier, that life's a learning experience,
Yes.
so a politician who sets out to learn has probably got the right frame of mind to do well at it. But I keep unless a politician can put the case well, he or she is going to lose the case. So my advice would be put time into your debating skills, your speaking skills, comprehension. Because if you're a party leader, you're the advocate. You're the person in the courtroom. And just as a mighty barrister has got the job for getting his client off an unfair conviction, saving his or her life, a lot rests on your capacity to sell a case. And I'm disappointed when so many politicians are lazy about that task. If you can't sell your case, you'll lose your case.
That's great advice for any leader.
And if you're not confident about your debating skill, what are you going to do when you face a challenge? You're going to think, I won't take that up because I won't succeed in persuading people to join me. I won't take up promoting that reform because I doubt my ability to sell it. Now that's letting the side down, whatever the side is. So I think a politician who is confident about his or her capacity to sell a case.
What about tenacity? Tenacity to stick with it. I see a lot of them come in and go these days, but to stick with it, what does it take? What are the virtues that you'd aspired to, and taking your learnings?
I had to lead my party for 7 years in opposition, and it was very hard going. 7 years in opposition.
Well, that's a long time.
And you're up and down in the polls.
Yeah.
There were times when everyone said, you'll get there. Not very many occasions, I've got to say. For most of the time, people are writing you off. So that's hard slog.
Yeah. Bob, if you're looking back to yourself, and I don't normally ask this question, okay, but I'm trying to go down a path here, which is, I want to understand the virtues that you respect. There's a lot of people, young guys, that look up and go, okay, this guy really served the country well, served the state well, etc. What would you advise them as far as these young guys coming through at the moment, say they've gone and they did their studies, they're getting into work? You gave a really nice piece of advice previously, which is, you made a decision to go down a particular path, give it a good go. What type of things within them should they aspire, and if they go off path, make mistakes, how do they go about being kind to themselves, etc.? So what type of things make a good guy?
Well, I think you just got to embrace your mistakes and say, yes, that was a mistake, that was a beauty, but I've learnt from that. Yeah. I've learnt from that mistake. You've got to see it as normal that you'll stuff up a lot of the time. A lot of the time you will get it wrong. Mm-hmm. But probably as you get older, you'll sometimes amaze yourself by how you got something right. You got something absolutely right.
It's beautiful. So you're talking about a lot of compassion and self-compassion and empathy towards yourself, right? And that, once you have that within yourself, do you find that the people that have that, it's easier for them to also share that amongst other people as well, so they don't judge other people as harshly?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can recall very often choosing not to rebuke a colleague because I could see myself as being entirely capable of making the same mistake. Mm.
So, Bob, what is the, how important, we talk a lot about in the work that we do, how people, for instance, eat, right? And I'm not too sure how often people talk to you about this, right? But health plays a big part in what we do. And we touched on it previously with the meditation. But in terms of your physical health, how do you go about it? What does it look like?
Well, I follow a routine, so I can think of contemporaries of mine over the years who've died, and I've got to say they drank too much. They're people who drank too much.
Okay.
So everyone likes, many people like the taste of a glass of alcohol, but clearly it's a crutch. And I think as you get older, you've got to wind it down. You've got to wind it right back. As you get older, you haven't got the tolerance for it.
Yes.
Smoking is just an act of suicide.
Yeah.
Just an act of suicidal lack of self-regard. I can't understand people who don't like exercise. Exercise makes me feel better, so I'm addicted to it, but it's a good addiction to have.
Yes.
I can't believe that I'm doing exercise programs now that I would not have done 20 or 30 years ago. So there are no guarantees in this, but it's sensible to put yourself in the right risk category rather than the category of the highly vulnerable. But I think all these things are easier if you keep busy, if your life is full of activity.
Yes.
And tasks and deadlines. I think too much leisure on your hands can invite you to be a bit self-indulgent. But I think a lot of benefits flow from just being busy.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it'd be bad for me not to have deadlines, not to have challenges, not to have half a dozen things that I should be devoting myself to. But on the other hand, I'm sure that with many people with space in their lives, perhaps in retirement, with meditation and interest in exercise and and gardening and a lot of other things, live very fulfilling lives. You shouldn't be dogmatic, should you?
No. Well, I've got a question that I must ask you, which is around this, you touched on it in terms of alcohol and certain activities. Of course, picking the right activity is important to be busy with, right? I think a lot of this is personal responsibility. An individual needs to take that personal responsibility. But from someone who served in government, leadership and I don't just mean government, I mean leadership in general. There's a culture in our country, as you know, of indulging in alcohol, etc. And how much of it is, people turn up, there's always a work function, there's always a luncheon or something like that. How much of it is self-driven, do you think? How much of people need to take ownership themselves? And how much of it is leadership role modeling?
I think it's all personal responsibility. All personal responsibility. I feel very sorry for people who've just got a chemistry in the system that makes them prone to alcohol dependency. And I'm full of admiration for people who have been addicted to it, but who beat it with the help of Alcoholics Anonymous or some other therapeutic approach. I think there's only an onion skin that separates you from someone who's struggling with a dependency.
Can we talk about the professor for a moment? As in your work with UTS, and if we can lead to what you see the rest of your life being dedicated to. I know it's a big question, that one, but you may have thought it through, or you may just be taking it as it comes. Can we talk about, the education work that you're doing right now? I know you're a huge advocate, and you've mentioned it a few times in terms of lifelong learning, and sharing your knowledge now, obviously. Then if we can come to, where do you see yourself dedicating the rest of your life to?
Who knows? Who knows? I've got this very interesting job now, based at UTS in Sydney, heading a think tank devoted to the Australia-China relationship. What happens after that, I simply don't know.
So you take it as it comes?
Yeah.
Beautiful, in that moment.
But I think I'll always be doing some sort of writing and speaking, but again, who knows?
Do you see yourself travel a lot these days, or is it mainly in Australia?
Yeah, but not fanatically. I think as you get older, you think, no, I won't get to see that part of the world or that part of the world, but so what? It doesn't matter. I think if your life becomes a frantic pursuit of experience, that's a bit of dissipation as well. I think for stability in life, a lot of us have got to be anchored in work. You've got to be anchored in work. I think that's important. Maybe I'll change, but in another 10 years I'll have a different view.
That's a wonderful view. I really like that view. I think what happens is we have so many things to tick off, which is promoted these days. It's the huge term that's being thrown around a lot, which is the bucket list. And people keep chasing one thing after another.
Yeah, but and what's the big deal if you die before you've had a cruise of the coast of Norway? It'd be nice if you got to do it. I'm sure there'd be some very fulfilling moments. But would anything be different about you if you weren't to do that? Still the same person. And if you spent the time back home at the workaday tasks, you might have read a book that gave you a whole new set of thinking, a whole new set of thoughts, or you're able to advise someone, a younger person, in ways that they found very valuable, or push a cause that you're committed to.
That's wonderful. It's a beautiful insight. Thank you for hearing that, actually. Because there's not that many people that talk about that and are aware of that. And what I find in our work sometimes, Bob, when we're chatting with people who are continuously running and are the most highly accomplished, but they're finding it difficult to get peace in their lives, is basically comes down to being able to sit, in calmness and quietness. And again, it goes back to the ability to be able to meditate and be in the present moment.
And in that spirit, it's been lovely to talk to you about
Pleasure.
these things.
It's been great. Thank you so much, Bob.
Okay.
I had an absolute ball hanging out with Bob. We had a lot of fun. We had some awesome chats afterwards as well. Send us your feedback, please, and share this. Actually, if you subscribe or get someone else to subscribe to the Leadership Show, the Happiness Platform, I'll send them 3 free videos as well that others haven't seen yet. You'll get some awesome knowledge bombs, unbelievable leaders from around the world who have joined us. Thanks again. and I can't wait to bring the next episode to you. These 13 awesome ones coming through in these particular happiness platform series. I'm Ro, and all the best, yeah?